wanted to say a lot of the film is filled with very original stuff. I mean, the dramatic structure built around the ensemble rather than one single character, you know, or one relationship. That was really brand new, I thought. Haven't seen that for a long time. But then your thing I'm curious about is you have 8 cameras going. How did you edit this film?
Well, you can see in the credits that there were 4 editors on board, and we worked for basically 10 months straight. Originally, it was planned, it was going to be a much shorter edit, and there was going to be a lot more time for visual effects. But we ended up working, for a very, very long time, and the film changed a lot in the editing room. It's strange because I feel that at least in my career so far, it's the film that I've experimented the most with. I really was able to play. I mean, if you look at the first cut of the film versus the finished product, there's like a huge journey in between. Originally, the script was linear. Up until very late in the game, we had a linear cut of the film, and it was only it was literally, I mean, a couple of weeks before locking that we played with the nonlinear structure. The different cameras, it was, we had all 8 cameras synced up on, then we edited on the final cut because we were mixing different formats, and it was a friendlier system to be able to mix different formats. But every time you do it, we wanted to make sure we kept everything in sync. But that meant having timelines that were just gigantic, like really, I mean, like having, I don't know, 80 or 90 tracks of video going on to be able to organize everything at the same time. And the multiple screens, originally in the script, there was only at the very end that the multiple screens came in. But when we were shooting and we would see these 8 beautiful monitors with the shots inside the spaceship, every time someone would visit the set, they would stay and stare forever at those, at the 8 monitors, because it was beautiful to see everything happening simultaneously. And so we did incorporate a lot of that into the editing. But it was a huge challenge, and also there was a lot of documentary, a feeling of editing a documentary. There was a version of the cut where we incorporated a lot of historical and the elements and the history of space travel, and we had a lot more famous figures, in the history of space travel that were there. At some point, I even went back all the way to Galileo, and because he was the first person who saw Europa through his telescope, and tried to incorporate that. But there was a moment where we had to narrow down and really focus on the story and what was important without leaving those elements out too much. But it's been the biggest challenge I've had editing a film, for sure.
I think we've got time for one last question. Yeah, the waving hand all the way in the back.
Can you talk about how the technical aspect of pre-production?
The technical aspect of pre-production was, and there were a lot of things happening at the same time. On one hand, we started everything with the design of the spaceship. Sebastián Cordero, who's the production designer, a Mexican production designer, he was worked on 2 of my previous movies, and he also did Pan's Labyrinth, for which he's most famous for. He loved the challenge of designing a spaceship. So a lot of our investigation with NASA, with SpaceX, with different people involved in that was really important in designing everything, incorporating things that we would be familiar with. Even if this was futuristic, we wanted it also to feel. One of the things when you see in space travel is that you gotta have things that can be fixed, along the way. You can't that are they can't be just top of the line that if they break down you can send to have them fixed somewhere else. It has to be something that you can take apart. So it's not as fancy looking as some of the stuff that you see in our everyday life nowadays. But it was more important that it made sense in terms of the technology. Once we designed the ship, we built a 3D model on a computer computer to figure out exactly where we would position the, I mean, it was useful for the art department, but it was also useful for camera to figure out where we would be positioning the different cameras and how we would play with that. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot, a lot of different. I mean, I could go on endless things about each. I mean, there's a lot of details that just had to be, to feel right. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of. I don't know if that answers your question.
How long was it for? How long was pre-production for you?
Well, I came to, first I traveled to Mexico in July of 2011 to start working with Eugenio, and we shot the movie in November, and August I was in New York, which is where we shot the film on the soundstage. He came, we both came in August, started working right away on the pre-production and the construction of the set. And by November we were shooting. It was a pretty fast process for the complexity of the film.
What camera formats were you using?
It's the main cameras that we use are the SI2K, Silicon Image 2Ks, which Enrique, the DP, had used before on 127 hours. And it's a camera that he, actually, when he was shooting 127 hours, he told me, I never want to use this camera again. And of course, the minute we got on this film, he said, no, that's the ideal camera for this because we're, and he's a huge fan of it, but it's for this to have these, they're tiny, they're literally the size of a, the big one is probably the size of a fist, and the small one is the size of an iPhone. And with a lens on top of it and the whole body, all the system is separate. It goes through a cable. So it was ideal to be able to place it in the ship and to have it be a part of our set dressing. But so it worked out really nicely. It's basically a 2K camera that.
Were you coding disc for your recording format?
Yeah, those we had so many discs. I don't even remember how many teras of information we have, but the data managers, we had like these great, very tech guys who were a lot of fun, who every day, spent hours just backing everything up, and I couldn't even watch the material again as we were shooting because it would take so long, just in terms of rewatching 8 different monitors or different cameras, and it was easier if I had it out and was something to do another take right away than to watch the shot to see if it worked.
Thank you guys for coming out. And thank you for sticking around. Please don't forget to leave your audience award ballot on the way out of the theater. Our volunteers will collect that for you.